let's talk about comprehensible input. Just got this question by why J. Anyway, okay. What do you mean by comprehensible input? If I read a book or watch content, but I use a translator for the parts I don't understand, does it still fit the concept of comprehensible input? Or is it considered deliberate practice if we speak about input activities? People argue all the time about comprehensible input. What is comprehensible input? And then they bring crashes, affective filter, and this and that. And look, when we talk input in non-academic, in a non-academic discussion, I think learning with input is learning with video, audio, or breathing. Yeah, that's input. If you I mean, technically, if you anything you read and anything you listen to is input, right? So it's always input. Whatever you do, everything can be called input because even with a grammar book, technically you're reading the words from there, so that's input. But you have to establish the limits somewhere. So, in my opinion, that's the easiest. Learning with input is reading, learning by watching videos, learning by listening. And so in this case, if you watch content or read a book and use a translator for the parts you don't understand, yeah, you're still doing comprehensible input. If you then make a list with that vocabulary or whatever those sentences, and you review the sentences in a list, you're reading the sentences, but that's not comprehensible input. I think that's the already deliberate practice. That's where I put the limit. And obviously, if you're learning vocabulary, memorizing vocabulary in a vacuum, not comprehensible input. Yeah, that's so. If that's the yeah, technically my list of sentences that I use to learn vocabulary and grammar and speaking fast. Technically, you could call it. I'm still reading them, right? I'm still listening to them, so we could call it comprehensible input. But that's just a review. Yeah, it's not my method is not comprehensible input because there's some input in there. Some comprehensible input is included, but it's a small part of. It's just a review. The real learning doesn't happen during the input. The real learning happens memorizing and during retrieval practice, not during the input. That's just a way to review what you've already learned. This is my problem with the comprehensible input guys. The people who are just you should just watch videos and read stuff online and you learn the language. Eventually you learn some language, but very, very slowly. That's the problem with comprehensible input. With comprehensible input used like that, like just as a one size fits all as a solution to everything. There's no single thing that fixes everything. A language is a system, and you need to improve it in all areas. Right? You need to improve your ability to read, your vocabulary, your grammar, your ability to listen and understand, but also your ability to speak fluently, your own pronunciation, your accuracy, eliminate your mistakes. All that stuff, you don't. Most of that you don't improve that much with comprehensible input, or at all. So it's a part. It's a useful tool in the toolbox. It's not the only tool. Yeah, a lot of these tools, this who believe in comprehensible input, the Church of Input, and Saint Stephen Krashen and Steve Kaufman, they treat comprehensible input as all. Their only tool is a hammer, so everything is a nail for them, and that's not the case. Comprehensible input, yeah, good for reviewing, bad for and good for learning pronunciation if you mean listening, bad for speaking, for example, or bad for error correction, or bad for and slow as well. bad for learning infrequent vocabulary. You learn all the common words fast, but for more infrequent vocabulary, you're going to they won't show up often. So it's going to take a long time and a lot of input for you to see them enough times to remember them. So you need lists. This is why deliberate practice beats comprehensible input 10 times out of 10. Yeah, memorize with associations, as many words as possible every day. Retrieval practice. In fact, you could you could do basically zero input and still learn the language way faster than with only input. If you just memorize vocabulary and used retrieval practice with full sentences with grammar, you just you learn to speak well just with that. With bad pronunciation, you have to learn pronunciation as well, but you can do that with deliberate practice as well. It's just much harder work, but everything's better with deliberate practice. Yeah, you could not read anything, like not even an article in the language, not a story, not the dumb stories for children, like mini stories, this and that. You could just memorize vocabulary, do retrieval practice for with full sentences until you say them all correctly, and listen and repeat thousands of sentences aloud, and you learn to speak really well. It's just very hard to do. It's a lot of effort. But I just gave you the secret. If you do those three things, like 3 hours a day, fluent in a month. You just have to do it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Give it a like, share, subscribe, all that, and see you later.